Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Hetvi and welcome to the second segment of understanding the process of creating a grant proposal. If you haven't already, be sure to watch my previous video, for which I'll place a link in the description box, where I've discussed what a grant proposal is and how you could go about researching for it, as well as selecting a topic that's appropriate for you to base your grant proposal on. So be sure to watch that video before continuing to watch this video. But just to provide a bit more of a context and an overview to all of you out there that are still unfamiliar with the term grant proposal, essentially it means to create a draft of the research that you aim on conducting in order to gain funds from either an institute or a funding body. So essentially you're summarizing the importance of the research area that you've selected, why that particular area that you want to focus on, what your question is that you want to research, and more importantly, the importance and the benefit that that research will serve either to the institute, the funding body, or the general population. So be sure to familiarize yourself with that context. But for the sake of this video, I want to focus on firstly how to structure and format a grant proposal, followed by looking at a checklist of all the things you need to ensure you've incorporated within your grant proposal. So be sure to watch this video right till the end in order to reap the most benefit. And without further ado guys, let's get started in today's video. So before discussing how to structure your grant proposal, it's extremely important that you're able to cross-check with your institute or your university whether or not they're going to provide you with a template to conduct your grant proposal on. Majority of the times, institutes and universities will provide a specific template that they expect you to have used to conduct your grant proposal on. So be sure to have used that rather than any other. Or if you're not provided with a template, I would suggest that you choose to use a grant proposal template that you could find online in order to submit your grant proposal. At least that way you have incorporated all the elements that are required for you to produce a successful grant proposal. And I have placed a link of one of the example templates that I found online, so be sure to have checked that to familiarize yourself with the content that is required for you to submit a successful grant proposal. And of course, the structure that I will state for you to have for your grant proposal, it is not limited to just this. You might be asked to incorporate additional information, so be flexible enough to allow the incorporation of other details that your institute or university may suggest you require. So beginning with your introduction, this is where you'll be required to provide background information with regards to why that research is being conducted and what the importance of that is. So make sure that you're able to correspond your background information with the hypothesis or the question that you're wanting to investigate. And the more you're able to incorporate the relevance between why it is that you're researching that particular aspect, what the importance of that is, the more convincing it becomes for that funding body or the institute that is reading your grant proposal to feel the need for that research to be conducted and to understand the value of why that research needs to be conducted. So once you have done your background information, incorporated appropriate references, when it comes to your aims and objectives, make sure that there's a clear link between the scope and the theme of your research, and as well as them being corresponding to your hypothesis in order to address that question or that hypothesis that you've stated. Once you have conducted and constructed those, be sure to have provided the time that you're anticipating your research to take in order for it to have addressed and completed investigating that hypothesis or that question. So, that might either be 6 months, 12 months, but be clear that you're providing that timeline to your institute or that funding body so that they're aware of how long that entire research will take. Now, as an example, as you can see on the left-hand side, I've provided an exemplary introductory paragraph that I would use for my grant proposal. Of course, it's not as detailed, nor does it have all the background information as yours would, and I would highly insist that you spend as much time as you can and you invest a lot of time in thoroughly reading through and gaining a better understanding of that subject matter or that area that you're interested in investigating, and then begin your write-up. Do not rush into kind of starting your write-up or getting it complete as early as you can. Just invest your time with that thorough background reading, because it will again and again help you with all of the subsequent sections that you'll require for your write-up. So as you can see, I've discussed on the importance of that research and why it is and what type of research I'm doing. So I'm continuing on from the research that already exists. My data will expand on the current data that's already out there, and that is to investigate corticosteroid and its appropriate use among different participants of different age groups to indicate at what age, can it be administered or initiated in an individual for the effectiveness to still be there. And my hypothesis here, it's not based on a question. Here, I'm stating what I anticipate the result to be. So corticosteroids used at a younger age will produce more promising results than for those that's initiated at a later age. So I'm stating that it'll be more promising for the younger ones than the older ones. So it's not a question, but I'm predicting for that to be the result. So that is what my hypothesis is. You're making a prediction of what you anticipate your results to be like. And of course, my objective here, I've only stated one. You will of course have more than one, or at least you should have more than one. So I'd suggest at least 2 to 3, if not 4 objectives you want that can address that hypothesis. But here the one that I have is pretty simple. It discusses on having participants of different age groups. So this is simply a basic format of how you could go about constructing your introductory paragraph. Of course, yours will be a lot more detailed, like I said, than mine is, and it'll be researched and backed up with evidence than mine is. But moving on from your introductory paragraph to your method, now this is where you will discuss the framework of your method as to how it is that you're going to conduct and investigate whatever it is that you're proposing. So continuing from my example, I'd be discussing factors like how am I incorporating participants, what's my inclusion-exclusion criteria, how many participants are going to be included, and what type of method am I going to utilize to investigate this. So is it going to be a randomized trial, is it going to be a double-blinded trial, or is it just going to be a cohort study? And why is it that I'm focusing on or becoming more lenient into doing one more than the other? So why would I opt for a double-blinded randomized study, then a cohort study, as well as why would I have 30 participants than 10 participants? Well, the utilization of a randomized double-blind trial would prevent bias in my study. So, you've got to refer back to why it is that you're constructing and conducting it in a certain way. When you're discussing the results from your methods, now you may or may not have conducted that method that you've stated or gained results. Now, if you've gained results, then I want you to be very clear in terms of what data you've gained and collected. Clearly state the data as it is. Do not try and change the numbers or make it more favorable to what you've hypothesized. State the data as you've gained it, and refer to how it is that you've collected it. What statistical analysis have you used? So is it Pearman's correlation, Spearman's rank, Wilcoxon's test? Again, there are various different statistical analysis methods that you could have used. Now, if you do want me to go into a lot more details as to how to statistically analyze and review data, then be sure to comment down below and I'll create a separate video where I'm focusing on those. But for this video, be sure that you're able to state and allow the reader to understand how it is that you've collected that data and analyzed it to draw a conclusion. From your results to your discussion, now this is where you will start to discuss what results you've gained and what those results suggest. So after collecting my data, it may have suggested that there is no correlation between the age that you initiate corticosteroid use and the impact or the effectiveness that it has. It's the same across the group, so it does not matter which age group you're giving it to, the effectiveness is still there and it's just as effective. Or it could be that the older the individual is, the better the effectiveness of that is seen. So I'd be discussing what that meant, and of course whether or not then that addresses my hypothesis or it correlates to my hypothesis. Is it corresponding or is it kind of against? Make sure to refer back to your hypothesis in your discussion and your conclusion. Now, when you're coming to your conclusion, do not just rely and summarize the academic aspect or the academic side of what your research suggests. That is what your entire grant proposal's on. You want to discuss beyond academic prospect what that research has meant. So what impact will it have on the institute, that funding body, the community, the economic benefit that may serve, or kind of helping a particular age group, particular population of individuals. What benefit is it serving? It's extremely important to get across in your conclusion. And for the final segment of this video, I'll be providing you guys with a checklist of the things you want to incorporate within your grant proposal, majority of which I've already discussed throughout the video, so I will not go and reiterate those aspects, but there are a few elements that I do want to place emphasis on that I believe are extremely crucial for you to understand and incorporate within your grant proposal. First and foremost being that you are addressing what problem it is that you're wanting to investigate or propose your grant proposal on, and whether or not that has already been addressed. So by conducting that further reading, you'll gain an overview of, what information we already have, what relevant information we, other articles have portrayed that you can utilize within your grant proposal to emphasize and reiterate the importance of your grant proposal and your research, more importantly. So be sure that you're kind of understanding that prospect. Your hypothesis you want to ensure is based on your research and what study design you are opting for, so whether that's in vitro, in vivo, clinical studies, and the techniques that you're wanting to utilize in order to gain results to address your hypothesis, your aims and objectives. Be sure that you are thorough when you are providing those and that they are able to address appropriately the hypothesis and your aims and objectives that you've proposed. Now, something that I haven't placed much emphasis on or that I haven't really mentioned is to understand what material, what equipment you'll require when you're conducting your research, as well as determining the environmental and the financial needs that you'll have. Be sure that you're providing information about those as well beyond kind of the academic scope, so that the reader is able to gain that holistic overview and kind of that systematic thought process that you've put in place to make it a lot more convincing and support your research and to make it seem like you're very legit about conducting this research and you're very serious. So be sure that you're getting that across in your grant proposal. So that is it for this video, guys. I really hope that you found this video useful. If you have, be sure to like this video, consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon right next to it to make sure that you're regularly updated. If you do have any questions or queries, please feel free to comment down below and I'll try my best to address any of your questions or queries. Thank you so much again for watching my video. Until next time, guys, take care. Bye.